Hey, it's Jordan here. You ever been stabbed in the back by your own blood? Well, let me tell you what my daughter did to me right after snatching my house. At midnight, she kicked me out, told me I meant nothing, and thought she could walk away from everything we built. But guess what? After 23 missed calls, she was the one who was in for the shock of her life. This ain't just about a house. It's about everything I lost and everything I'm about to take back. You won't believe what happens next. I had lived a long life, 63 years to be exact, and while my body had begun to show the wear of time, my mind was sharp as a tack. But if I'm being honest, I didn't feel like I was getting any younger. It was a strange feeling to wake up every morning with your knees aching and your back stiff, yet still have the weight of your entire existence hanging on you. My name is Jordan, and I have seen things. The things you don't forget. War, loss, and family, especially family. I remember when I first bought this house, my sanctuary, a small home in a quiet neighborhood in Atlanta, Georgia, where I could breathe easy after a lifetime of service. It was the culmination of my work and sacrifice, every penny earned during my time in the Army. The house was supposed to be my safe place, the one constant in my life where my family could gather and I could feel some semblance of peace. At least, that's what I thought. LaToya, my daughter, was supposed to be the one who understood. She was my pride and joy, the one I thought I raised to appreciate everything I had worked for. But over the last few years, things had started to change. The distance between us grew with every phone call, every visit. She was dismissive, cold. It didn't make sense. My own flesh and blood, the one I had sacrificed so much for, was starting to treat me like I didn't matter. It wasn't just the small things. No, it was more than that. It was the subtle jabs. "You're too old to be in charge now, Dad," she'd say. "Let me handle the finances. You're not making sound decisions anymore." I pushed it aside at first. Maybe she was just worried about me. I had been feeling the wear of time after all. My health was deteriorating, but deep down I knew something wasn't right. Still, I didn't question her, not yet. I wanted to believe that the woman I had raised had respect for me. But that was before everything started to unravel. The first sign of betrayal came slowly. I remember the day I noticed it clearly. It was a quiet afternoon, one of those peaceful days when nothing seemed out of place. LaToya came over, sat down with me, and we talked about her job, her life, her future. But something was different. She wasn't as present, not in the way she used to be. Her words were laced with condescension, her tone dismissive. I could tell she was getting more and more frustrated with me, like I was a burden. I remember feeling a pit in my stomach. "You're not fit to handle the house or the money anymore," she said, almost casually, as though she wasn't talking about my life's work. It stung, sure, but I let it slide. That was until she started showing up more often, taking charge of my bills, my papers, my affairs, all while telling me I was too old to make decisions. But it didn't stop there. Oh no. She started telling me how to spend my money, how I should be investing, what I should and shouldn't buy. And then came the worst of it. Her telling me I wasn't competent enough to handle my own finances. That's when the doubt really began to creep in. It was when I was bedridden with an illness that things started to slip even further. LaToya convinced me it would be best for her to handle everything for me, as I couldn't manage things the way I used to. I was vulnerable, and I trusted her. In hindsight, I was too trusting. After all, she was my daughter. I didn't think she'd do anything to hurt me. But once I signed those papers to let her take control of my finances, that's when she took the first step in her plan. I began noticing small discrepancies. At first, I thought it was just the fog of age. Maybe I'd forgotten something or made a mistake. But the more I looked, the more I realized something was wrong. Money was missing from my accounts. Transactions I hadn't authorized. And then, the final realization hit me like a punch to the gut. She had transferred ownership of my house to herself. It was like my whole world had crumbled. The house, my pride, the one place I had built with my own hands, was now in the hands of the very person I had trusted the most. I confronted her, of course. But she turned it around on me, denied everything, told me I was imagining things, that I was too sick to understand what was really going on. She gaslighted me. "You're not in your right mind, Dad," she said, the words cold and dismissive. "You're not capable of managing your own life anymore." And that's when the loneliness set in. I started pulling away from everyone. LaToya had kept me away from my friends, from family, isolating me more and more. She convinced me I was too sick to see people. Every day I woke up, my health getting worse, my mind clouded by the confusion of it all. I had no one. Just the quiet of my home, now tainted by her manipulation. I sat by the window one night, watching the rain fall. The house, which had once been my haven, now felt like a prison. And the worst part? I still hoped. I still wanted to believe things could go back to how they used to be. But deep down, I knew something had changed forever. The final betrayal came on a cold night. Latoya showed up at my door, said she was going to take me to the airport to visit a relative. I was confused, but I didn't argue. She insisted it was for my own good. I didn't know it then, but she had a plan. She drove me to the airport, told me to wait for a plane that would never come. I was left there, alone, with just $50 in my pocket and no way to get home. My daughter, the one person I thought would never hurt me, had abandoned me. She left me stranded, laughing as she drove away. And then the missed calls started. 23 missed calls. 23 reminders that she had turned her back on me. Each one felt like a slap to the face. I sat there stunned, trying to process what had just happened. She had thrown me away, like I was nothing. But I didn't stay there long. The anger began to build, quiet but fierce. I wouldn't be passive anymore. I wouldn't let this be the end. As I sat there at the airport, my mind racing, I knew I couldn't let this go on any longer. My daughter had crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. This wasn't just about money or the house. It was about respect, about family, and I wasn't going to let her destroy that without a fight. I picked up my phone, dialed the number I hadn't called in years, an old friend from the VFW. I needed help. And this fight, it was just beginning. I sat there, the cold, sterile air of the airport surrounding me. I looked at the $50 in my hand, the only thing my daughter had left me with, and I couldn't believe what had just happened. My mind was racing, trying to piece together the events, but the truth was slowly sinking in. She left me, my own flesh and blood. She had abandoned me. The betrayal was so sharp, so raw, it felt like a knife in my gut. I told myself it was a mistake, a misunderstanding. Surely she didn't mean it like that. But deep down I knew better. Latoya had been distancing herself for months, but I refused to see it. She'd always been my little girl, and I had convinced myself that she was just going through a phase. I didn't want to believe that someone I'd spent my life protecting could turn on me. Yet here I was, stranded, confused, and alone. Sitting at the gate, I started to replay the moments that led me here, like a broken record. The way she'd rolled her eyes when I tried to make decisions, the way she told me I was too old to handle things, how she'd subtly pushed me aside, claiming I wasn't capable anymore. Her words stung, but I brushed them off, thinking it was just her stress or maybe my aging. She was my daughter after all. I thought somehow that all would be fine. But now, looking at the empty terminal, I could no longer deny it. She had been manipulating me all along, using my age and health against me. She had turned from caring to controlling, all while convincing me it was for my own good. I was angry, sure, but more than that, I felt a profound sadness. The pain was deeper than I ever thought it could be. It wasn't just the abandonment, it was the realization that I had been blind to it all. The betrayal wasn't just a momentary lapse, it had been building for months. And now I was alone, without the person I trusted most. As the phone vibrated in my hand, I saw the 23 missed calls from Latoya. My first instinct was to pick up. Maybe she was calling to apologize, to explain herself. Maybe she had a good reason. But then I stopped myself. No, I wasn't going to fall for it. Not this time. The conflict inside me was overwhelming. I wanted to hear her voice, to give her the chance to talk her way out of this. But I couldn't. She had done this to me, left me stranded with nothing but $50 and her lies. And the worst part was I still didn't fully understand why. I hadn't done anything to deserve this. I had always tried to do right by her, to be a good father. But now I knew. I couldn't let her manipulate me any longer. I wasn't the fool she thought I was. The calls kept coming, each one a reminder of the betrayal, each one a whisper of her taking more from me. I shut the phone off. I couldn't keep doing this. I wouldn't. I needed to think, to breathe. I closed my eyes for a moment, the noise of the terminal fading into the background. A memory hit me then, one from years ago, when I was younger, stronger, when I wasn't a burden to anyone, when I stood tall, proud of the work I had done, proud of the family I had built. I remembered my time in the military, those long years of service, the sacrifices I made, the brothers I lost. I remembered the man I had been, sharp, confident, full of purpose. I had been someone people respected, someone who commanded authority, not this frail old man sitting in an airport with a broken heart. I was a man who had survived things that should have destroyed me. I had fought battles both overseas and at home. I wasn't a man who gave up easily, no matter how much life threw at me. And I wasn't going to start now. I fumbled through my bag, pulling out the paperwork that had been stuffed into an envelope, the deed, my house, the very thing that had been my home for years. I had signed the papers, trusting LaToya to manage things for me while I dealt with my health. But now, as I stared at the deed in my hands, I could see the reality. She had forged my signature. She had taken my home. She didn't just manipulate me emotionally, she stole from me. The anger bubbled up inside me, hot and fierce. I had been blind, but now I saw everything for what it was. She had used me, and I had let her. But no more. No more would I stand by and let her ruin me. I grabbed my phone again, this time dialing a number I hadn't called in years. Reggie, my old buddy from the VFW. The one person I could always count on. He had been there for me when no one else was, and now I needed him again. "Reggie," I said as soon as he picked up, "I need your help." He didn't hesitate. "What's going on, Jordan?" I told him everything, the betrayal, the forged deed, the lies. I could hear the anger in his voice as I spoke, but there was also a calmness. He wasn't panicking. He was thinking, "All right, man, we'll get this sorted," he said. "But don't do anything stupid. We need to get the evidence first. Don't make any moves without it." I nodded, though he couldn't see me. Reggie was right. I needed to stay calm, plan this out. But the truth was, the fire inside me was burning hotter than ever. I wasn't going to let LaToya get away with this. Not now. Not ever. And then, just as I was about to end the call, the phone buzzed again. A lawyer. Someone who could help. Someone who had the legal leverage to fight back. "This is where it all begins, Jordan," the lawyer said, his voice steady. "We've got the evidence and we've got the law on our side. You're not alone in this anymore." The weight that had been on my chest lifted slightly. It wasn't over. It hadn't even started. I was going to take my life back. I took a long breath and leaned back against the cold metal of the chair at the airport. The anger, the shock, it all hit me like a freight train. But in that moment, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just going to sit here and let this betrayal define me. No, I wasn't going to let LaToya or anyone take my dignity. I had fought battles bigger than this. I had been through wars, literal wars, and I had come back standing. This was nothing compared to what I'd already survived. I wasn't about to let some petty betrayal tear me apart. I stood up, my knees creaking, and pulled my bag tighter. There was work to be done. I had to start thinking not just about what I had lost, but what I still had. And what I had was a history of fighting back. What I had was my mind, still sharp, even if my body wasn't what it used to be. The first step was gathering everything. I spent hours that evening in a cheap motel room sorting through my life. The papers, the letters, the photographs, anything that could tell my story. It was like piecing together a puzzle, except this puzzle wasn't just about reclaiming a house. It was about getting back what was mine. And more importantly, it was about proving that no one could take me down without a fight. I found the deed. There it was, right in front of me. Her name, LaToya's, forged across it. The same name that used to be sweet on my lips when she was a little girl. The same name that I'd loved and protected. But now, it was a reminder of everything she had taken. My trust, my home. I felt the blood rise to my face. This wasn't just a theft. This was betrayal. This was her deciding I was no longer useful, deciding I wasn't worth her respect. It hurt, but it wasn't going to stop me. The next morning, I took the bus into town. The plan was simple. I was going to see Reggie, my old buddy from the service. He'd been my right hand in Vietnam, and I needed him now. He was a man who understood loyalty, sacrifice, and honor. He'd been the one person I knew I could rely on. Reggie didn't waste time with pleasantries. When I told him about the forged deed, the betrayal, and my plan, he didn't blink. "We've got this, Jordan," he said. "But you can't rush it. We need to be smart about this. Start gathering everything. Keep your cool. You're not alone in this, and you won't be." He was right. The road ahead was going to be long, but it wasn't impossible. I didn't have to do this alone. I had the law on my side now, and more importantly, I had Reggie and a few other good people who cared. But even with the reassurance, I still had moments of doubt. My body wasn't what it used to be. I could feel the ache in my bones, the exhaustion in my mind. But when I thought about the battles I had faced in my life, when I thought about all the things I had survived, I couldn't let this beat me. So I kept working. I called the lawyer. Charlie. He wasn't the kind of man to waste words. When he said we had a shot, I believed him. He said he'd be able to use the emotional toll, the manipulation LaToya had put me through to strengthen the case. Charlie's advice was clear. Start documenting everything. Every conversation with LaToya. Every piece of paperwork. I wasn't just fighting for a house anymore. I was fighting for respect, for the truth, for justice. After a few days of gathering my things, I found myself standing in front of the house I had built. The place that had once been filled with laughter, love, and memories. Now, it stood silent. It felt foreign, even though it was still mine. I walked through the front door slowly, my hand resting on the familiar wood of the door frame. The memories flooded me. Watching LaToya run through these halls as a child, the family dinners, the late nights after a long day of work. But now, the house felt cold. It was no longer a home. It was just a place. A place LaToya had taken over, but it wasn't hers. Not really. This wasn't just about the house. This was about my legacy. It was about the years I'd spent building something real, something to be proud of. And no matter what LaToya did, she couldn't take that from me. Not completely. It was then that I saw Mrs. Ella, the neighbor from next door. She'd always been a kind woman, one who had watched over my family like we were her own. She looked at me for a moment before her eyes softened. "Jordan," she said, her voice low, "I need to talk to you." My heart raced. "What is it, Mrs. Ella?" She hesitated before speaking. "I saw her, Jordan. LaToya. I saw her forge your name on that deed. She came over one day, late, with some papers. I didn't know what she was doing at first, but I saw her write your name. I knew what was happening, but I didn't know how to stop it." My mind was spinning. Mrs. Ella had been a witness all along. She could help me. She could testify. And I wasn't alone. "Thank you, Mrs. Ella," I said, my voice shaky. "You don't know what this means to me." She gave me a small smile. "You're a good man, Jordan. You deserve better than what she's done to you. I'll help, whatever I can." The weight of the situation was heavy on my chest, but at least now I had an ally. But the question still lingered. Should I confront LaToya directly? Should I tell her I knew what she had done? Or should I stay quiet for now, keep my cards close to my chest, and let the legal process work itself out? The uncertainty was gnawing at me. I knew the truth. I knew what she had done. But if I confronted her now, would it push her further away? Or would it give her a chance to manipulate me once again? I was caught in a moment of indecision, unsure of which path to take. And then, just as I was about to leave the house, my phone rang again. I answered it, expecting to hear the voice of my lawyer, Charlie. Instead, I heard the urgency in his tone. "Jordan, we need to act fast. The house is about to be sold, and if we don't move quickly, we could lose everything." The panic hit me like a wave. LaToya was selling the house. She had no right to do that, not without me knowing. But now I had to act fast. The clock was ticking. "We'll do what we need to do," I said, my voice steady despite the panic rising in my chest. "I'm not letting her get away with this." I woke up the next morning with a clarity I hadn't had in days. There was a fire inside me now, a quiet resolve that had been building since that night at the airport. The anger was still there, but it wasn't the kind of anger that blinds you. No, this time it was calculated. It was righteous. I was about to take back what was mine. I had to do it, not just for the house, but for my pride, my dignity. I wasn't going to let her win. Not like this. I picked up the phone, dialed Charlie's number, and waited for him to pick up. The lawyer's voice on the other end was calm, steady. "Jordan, we're moving forward," he said, his voice like a lifeline. Charlie had already been working on the paperwork, but now it was time to sit down and go over everything together. We needed to plan. The forged deed, the fraudulent signatures, The manipulation, everything had to be laid out in black and white. We couldn't afford to miss a single detail. As I sat across from Charlie at his office, the weight of it all hit me. We went over every page, every document. I pulled out the deed LaToya had forged, holding it up like it was the key to everything. It was the key to my past, to my future, to the very essence of what I had built. Charlie looked over the documents with a focused intensity. "You've got a case here, Jordan, but it's going to take time. We need to stay patient and gather every bit of evidence. This isn't just a legal fight. This is about your integrity, your life." The weight of those words hit me harder than I expected. He was right. This wasn't just about reclaiming the house. This was about making sure no one ever doubted me again. I'd spent my life earning respect, and I wasn't about to let my daughter take it from me. As the days passed, I threw myself into the work. I gathered my military records, old photographs, and any letters that might show the history I had built, years of sweat, blood, and sacrifice. I thought about the days I spent in the field, the battles I'd fought, the lives I'd saved. I thought about how LaToya didn't know the man I had been, the strength I'd had, and the ways I had learned to endure the worst. In a way, the fight for the house was nothing compared to what I had already survived. And yet here I was facing another battle, a battle I didn't choose, but one I was going to win. I spent nights reflecting, looking at the letters from my service and thinking about how much had changed. The house was more than just bricks and wood. It was the place I had come back to after every battle, a place I'd built from the ground up. One afternoon, I found myself walking down the street to the cafe where I knew LaToya sometimes hung out. I hadn't seen her in days, but I was running on fumes, sick of hiding, sick of pretending everything was okay. I needed to face her. I found her sitting at a corner booth, sipping her coffee. The moment I walked in, I could feel the tension in the air. She didn't even look up at first, but I saw the way she tensed when I sat down. "Dad," she said, trying to smile, but I could hear the strain in her voice. "I've been trying to reach you. Why haven't you been answering my calls?" I leaned back in the booth, watching her. "I'm not in the mood for your games, LaToya." She blinked, surprised by my directness. "I don't know what you mean," she said, her voice too sweet, too rehearsed. "I've been trying to help you. I'm doing what's best for you." "You've been trying to take everything from me," I replied, my voice steady. "You think I don't know what's going on? I'm not some fool." Her eyes narrowed, but she quickly recovered. "Dad, please. I'm just trying to look out for you." "You're getting older, and I don't want to see you get hurt." I shook my head. "You're not looking out for me. You're taking what's mine, and you'll regret it." She scoffed, shaking her head. "You don't know what you're talking about. I'm doing this for you." I sat quietly, letting the silence fill the space between us. She didn't know that I knew the truth, and I wasn't about to give it away just yet. The best way to fight her was to stay calm, keep my cards close. This was about strategy, not emotion. A few days later, as I was going through more of the documents, I heard her slip up. She didn't know I was listening, but her voice was clear as day. "Well, if we don't sell the house soon, we won't be able to do anything. It's time, don't you think?" That was all I needed to hear. It confirmed everything I'd suspected. She was trying to sell the house, and she was doing it without my consent. I felt the anger boil inside me. But more than anger, I felt something else, a deep, cold certainty. She'd messed with the wrong person. The next day, I met up with Mrs. Ella, the neighbor who had been watching from the sidelines. She was a woman who had always had a sharp eye and a strong sense of right and wrong. When I told her what had happened, she didn't hesitate. "I saw her, Jordan," she said. "She came over with papers. I knew something wasn't right, but I didn't know how to help. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner." I put my hand on her shoulder. "You're helping now. That's all that matters." Mrs. Ella agreed to testify for me, which gave me the final piece I needed. The road ahead was still long, but I wasn't alone. It wasn't long before I received a call from Jamal, an old acquaintance who had once worked with LaToya. He had some information that would be crucial for the case. He had overheard her talking about the plans to sell the house long before I'd figured it out. That was the smoking gun I needed. "I'll be there for you, Jordan," Jamal said. "She can't just do this." I felt a wave of relief. This was the break I'd been waiting for. Now I had the evidence I needed to win. But just when I thought I had everything under control, LaToya called me again. This time, the message was clear. If I didn't drop the case, she'd expose something from my past, something I'd worked hard to keep hidden. "You don't want to go down this road, Dad," she said, her voice dripping with venom. "You have more to lose than I do." I didn't flinch. I'd been through too much to be intimidated now. "Do what you have to do," I replied. "I'm not backing down." The weight of what lay ahead pressed on my shoulders like a ton of bricks. As Charlie explained the court process to me, my mind raced. The legal battle ahead wasn't just about the house. It was about proving I wasn't some weak old man who could be easily manipulated. This wasn't just about money. It was about dignity. It was about standing my ground. "Jordan, this is going to be a tough fight," Charlie said, his eyes meeting mine with a steady, reassuring gaze. "But I believe we have a case here. We've got the forged documents, the witnesses, and we've got a solid strategy. Now it's about keeping your head straight and letting the process work." I nodded, feeling a surge of determination. My mind went back to my days in the service when every battle was a matter of survival. This, too, was a fight, just one in a different arena. I could do this. I had done harder things before. The days leading up to the court date were filled with preparation. Every document was scrutinized. Every piece of evidence was cross-checked. I spent hours going over my military records, looking for anything that could show my resilience and my history of never backing down. It wasn't just about proving that LaToya was a liar. It was about proving that I still had fight in me. There were moments late at night when the weight of it all would sink in. I'd look at the papers in front of me, signed documents, financial records, and testimonies, and I'd think about how far things had fallen. The betrayal, the manipulation. It all hit harder than I wanted to admit. But then, I'd remind myself, this was about something bigger than the house. This was about who I was and who I wasn't going to let her turn me into. When I met LaToya's lawyer for the first time, it was like stepping into a cold room. The man's handshake was firm, his suit well-tailored, and his smile plastic. He wasted no time with pleasantries. "We know you've got a case, Jordan," he said, his voice smooth, almost too smooth. "But you should understand something. You're up against a woman who's doing everything for the right reasons. This isn't personal, it's business." I looked him square in the eye. "I'm not here for your games," I said, my voice calm, measured. "I'm here because she's trying to take what's mine, and I'll be damned if I let her." He gave a tight smile, obviously unimpressed by my calm demeanor. "We'll see," he said before walking away. I stood there for a moment, feeling the pressure of the situation, but I didn't flinch. The law might be his domain, but I had something stronger, my resolve. A few days later, I ran into LaToya herself. It wasn't a planned meeting, but there she was, sitting in the cafe, sipping coffee, completely unaware of the storm I was about to bring her way. She looked up when I walked in, and her face immediately tightened, but she didn't move. Not a single flinch. "Dad, you're not answering my calls. I'm trying to do what's best for you," she said, her voice sweet, but I could hear the defensiveness in it. I took a seat across from her. "I know exactly what you're doing," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You've been trying to take my house, my life. You don't get to play the victim here." LaToya blinked, feigning innocence. "Dad, I'm just looking out for you. You're not getting any younger, and I'm just trying to make sure things are taken care of. You don't want to be burdened with all this." "You've made it clear," I said, leaning forward just enough to make sure she saw the seriousness in my eyes. "You're the one who's burdening me, and it's time it stopped." She looked away, then back at me. There was something in her eyes, something that made me realize just how far she was willing to go. But I didn't say another word. I stood up, my mind already racing ahead, planning the next move. No more words were needed. The fight was just beginning. The next morning, Charlie called. He had something for me. A letter. Inside it was a document that I hadn't seen before. A bank statement, one that showed the extent of LaToya's manipulations. Not only had she forged the deed, but she'd been altering my financial records too. She had been using my trust to line her pockets. I felt sick to my stomach. But as I read the letter, my resolve hardened. This wasn't just about the house anymore. This was about my life, my legacy, and I was going to take it back, piece by piece. With the new evidence in hand, I reached out to Mrs. Ella, the neighbor who had witnessed the forging of my signature. I had to meet her in person, make sure she was still on my side, still willing to testify. "I saw it, Jordan," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I never said anything before because I didn't want to get involved. But now I see what she's done, and I can't stand by and let her get away with it." Her testimony was exactly what I needed. I could feel the tide turning, but the battle wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. A week before the trial, I was still getting the occasional call from LaToya, trying to get me to settle. The last one, though, was different. "Dad, you don't have to go through with this," she said, her voice a mix of frustration and desperation. "I'll give you money. Just drop the case. You don't want to go down this road." I knew what she was doing, trying to buy me off, but I wasn't that man anymore. "I'm not here for your money," I said. "You took what was mine, and I'm taking it back. No amount of cash will change that." The call ended with a sharp click. I wasn't surprised. She didn't have anything else to offer. And then came the day of the trial. The court was packed with spectators. I walked in with my head held high, feeling the weight of all those eyes on me, but I wasn't afraid. I had come this far, and I wasn't going to back down now. Charlie stood by me, offering quiet words of support. "We've got this," he said. "Just stay calm. Let the evidence speak for itself." It was time. The battle had begun. Just as we thought things were going smoothly, LaToya pulled a stunt. In the middle of the proceedings, she tried to make a play for sympathy, claiming I was mentally unstable. She brought up my PTSD, trying to paint me as a man who couldn't even control his own life. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I stood up, steady as a rock, and looked the judge in the eye. "I've been through hell," I said, my voice low and strong. "I've survived wars, real ones. And I'm not afraid of you, LaToya. You've played your hand, and I'm not backing down." There was a moment of silence before the judge spoke, acknowledging my statement. LaToya's lawyer didn't know what to say after that. He had overplayed his hand, and it was clear the court wasn't buying it. As the trial neared its end, LaToya's lawyer dropped a bombshell, an offer to settle the case with a large sum of money. It was the kind of offer you make when you think someone's desperate enough to take it. I stood there, listening to the terms, the weight of the decision hanging over me. It was tempting. Take the money, end the drama. But then I remembered why I was here. It wasn't just about money. It was about my dignity. I stood at that crossroads, I thought, my mind racing. Take the money or fight for my dignity. The weight of the legal battle was settling deep into my bones, but I wasn't about to break. Not now, not after everything I had gone through. This wasn't just about getting my house back. It was about standing up for something far more important. My dignity, my legacy, my daughter, my own flesh and blood, had crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let it slide, not after everything I had done for her. The court case dragged on, each day feeling like an eternity. Charlie and I went over the details, piecing together the case like a puzzle. He'd always been a steady hand, calm and practical. As much as I appreciated his expertise, there was something stirring inside me, something that wouldn't let me rest. I had fought battles before. I had survived combat. What I was facing now in this sterile courtroom didn't scare me, but it sure as hell hurt. To be betrayed by your own flesh and blood, that cut deeper than any wound I had ever received. Charlie could see the toll it was taking. "We'll get her, Jordan. We have the evidence. It's just a matter of time." But the waiting was the hardest part. As I sat there in that stuffy office preparing for the next day in court, my mind wandered back to my time in the service. Back then, I had learned to stand tall, even in the face of impossible odds. I was a man who had seen the worst of the world and lived to tell the tale. A man who had fought for something bigger than himself. But here I was, fighting for something more personal, fighting for my own pride. LaToya's lawyer was a piece of work. The kind of slick, polished, smug bastard you wouldn't trust to hold your drink, let alone your future. The first time I crossed paths with him, I felt the chill in the air. He was trying to rattle me, and I wasn't about to let him. He laid it on thick, throwing around legal jargon like it was a weapon. "You understand, Mr. Jordan," he said, a fake smile creeping onto his face, "that we're prepared to prove your mental instability. That's going to be tough to fight, wouldn't you say?" I didn't flinch. I just stared him down, not giving him an inch. "You can try, but you won't get far with that." My voice was calm, but there was steel behind it. "You don't know who you're dealing with." His smirk faltered, and for a moment I could see the cracks in his armor, but he quickly recovered. "We'll see," he said, walking off with his head held high, probably thinking he had the upper hand. The real shock came a few days later, though. I was sitting in my living room, flipping through old papers, when I stumbled across a letter, one I hadn't seen in years. It was from Era, my late wife. She had written it years ago, but it felt like a message from the past, as clear as day. It was a letter outlining her wishes for the house. She had always wanted me to keep it. She knew how much it meant to me. LaToya, however, had kept this from me. She had known all along, and that was the tipping point. The betrayal wasn't just about the house, it was about trust. LaToya had manipulated me, lied to me. The letter was the proof I needed. It was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. I wasn't just fighting for the house anymore. I was fighting for the memory of Era, for everything she had worked for, everything she had sacrificed. I wouldn't let LaToya ruin it, but the pressure from my family didn't let up. Harry, my son, kept calling, telling me to settle. He didn't want the public mess. He didn't want the family to be embarrassed. "Dad, this is getting out of hand," he said one night, his voice filled with concern. "You need to think about how this is affecting all of us. You've done enough." It hurt to hear him talk like that. Harry didn't understand. He didn't see what LaToya had done. I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for everything that had been stolen from me. "I'm not backing down, son," I told him, my voice firm. "I didn't fight in wars just to let this slide." Charlie could tell something was bothering me. One night, after another long day in court, I broke down. I couldn't carry the weight anymore. The case, the betrayal, the strain on my family, it was all too much. I was starting to wonder if I could win this. "Charlie, I don't know if I can do this," I said, my voice low, filled with doubt. "I'm not sure I can win." Charlie looked at me, his expression softening. "Listen to me, Jordan. This isn't just about winning a case. It's about standing up for what's right. You've been through worse. You're still standing. And you will get through this too." His words gave me the strength I needed. I wasn't going to back down. Not now. Not ever. The day of the trial arrived, and the tension in the courtroom was palpable. I felt every pair of eyes on me as I walked in. I wasn't afraid, but damn, I could feel the weight of it all. This wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about my life, my reputation, and the years I had spent building everything that was now at risk. Charlie was right there beside me, reminding me of the evidence we had, the work we had done. I nodded, trying to focus on what mattered. The truth. LaToya's lawyer was relentless. He tried to poke holes in my story, but I wasn't going to let him get away with it. Every word out of his mouth was designed to undermine me, to make me seem like a fool, but I wasn't having it. Just when I thought I had a handle on things, LaToya threw one last curveball. Her lawyer brought up my PTSD, trying to paint me as unfit to make decisions. It was a low blow, and for a second I felt the rage bubbling up inside me. But I wasn't going to let them see me lose control. I stood up. Calm. Collected. "I've seen things," I said, my voice steady, "but I'm still here. I'm still standing, and I'm not the one who needs to be questioned here. The person you should be looking at is the one who's trying to steal from me." I could see the shift in the courtroom. The judge, the jury, they were all listening. I wasn't going to let LaToya play the victim anymore. As the trial neared its end, LaToya's lawyer made one final attempt to pressure me into a settlement. He handed me a set of papers, money. The temptation was real. The offer was generous. But then I thought about everything that had led me here. The fights, the sacrifices, the years of hard work. I stared at the settlement papers, the future of my life in my hands, and the last question lingered. Will I take the deal or fight until the end? The weight of the entire battle sat heavy on my chest, and I knew this moment was the culmination of everything I had fought for. I'd spent so much time considering the right thing to do. At first, it felt like just a fight over a house, but now it was about my life, my dignity, and reclaiming what was rightfully mine. I had faced worse in my life, but this was different. This wasn't about surviving another fight. This was about making sure my voice was heard. Days of doubt had passed, the weight of the decision pressing against my chest. But it was clear now. I couldn't back down. I had come too far. I wasn't just fighting for the house. I was fighting for myself, for the respect I had earned, for the man I'd become after all these years. I had fought wars and come home. I had dealt with loss and betrayal. I wasn't about to let a bunch of lies take everything I'd built. I picked up the phone, ready to make the call that would send everything into motion. I wasn't going to let her get away with it, not this time. Harry's voice was tight when he called. The worry in his tone was unmistakable. "Dad, I'm begging you," he said, the frustration clear in his voice. "We need to settle this. You've made your point. What good is it going to do dragging this out any longer? The media, the people, they're all talking. It's going to make everything worse for you, and for us." I felt a pang in my chest, but I couldn't let it get to me. It wasn't his fault, but damn it, I wasn't going to be bullied into submission. "Harry," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "this isn't about the money or the media. It's about what's right. If I settle, then I'm admitting she was right. I can't do that." There was silence on the other end of the line. I knew he was processing what I had said, but I could tell he wasn't happy about it. "I get it, Dad, but—" He stopped himself. "Just think about it." What's left to prove? The words stung, but I pushed them aside. "You don't get it. This isn't about me being right. It's about standing up. You can't let people run over you. Not like this." There was no response. We both knew the conversation was over. He didn't understand, and honestly, maybe he never would. As I sat down in my living room, the phone buzzed again. It was Charlie. I wasn't expecting it, but I needed the strength right now. "Jordan," he said, his voice steady but carrying a certain warmth. "I've been thinking about you. I know things are rough, but if you need it, I've got your back. We could start something new together, maybe a small business. Get your mind off all this mess once it's over. I'll help you get back on your feet." His words caught me off guard. I didn't want to rely on anyone. I'd been through enough to know I had to make my own way. But damn, the offer was tempting. A chance to leave this all behind and start fresh. It was a dream many men would kill for. "I appreciate it, Charlie," I said, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. "But I don't know. I've been on my own for so long, I don't want to take from anyone." "You've got a lot of pride, Jordan. I get it. But sometimes a little help goes a long way." I sat there holding the phone, torn. But Charlie had a point. The fight wasn't over yet, but there would come a time when I'd need to rebuild. LaToya and her lawyer were relentless. As the trial wore on, they were digging in their heels, trying to wear me down. And then came the final offer. LaToya stood with her lawyer, a smug look on her face, as she tried once again to buy my silence. "We both know you've lost," her lawyer said, voice smooth like silk. "This offer is generous. Take the settlement, and we can end this quietly." Her words were like nails on a chalkboard. It took everything in me not to snap. I stood up, every inch of my being ready to tear her down. But I didn't need to raise my voice. I let the words come out, slow and steady. "You've taken enough from me. You've tried to tear apart everything I've worked for. And now you think you can buy me off? No, I'm done." The room fell silent, the tension thick. I wasn't just fighting for the house anymore. I was fighting for my right to be respected, to be heard, to be free of the chains they'd tried to bind me with. As the case continued, the tension in the family only grew. My son Harry, despite his initial reluctance, was starting to pull away. His friends, the media, they were all pushing him to tell me to settle. I could feel the divide getting wider, and it hurt. They didn't see it. None of them did. They didn't understand the depth of what was at stake. I wasn't just fighting for the house, I was fighting for something far more important. My place in this family, my legacy. The courtroom scenes were brutal, but I felt a strange sense of calm when I took the stand. And then I had prepared myself for this moment. I had thought about it every night before I went to sleep. It wasn't just about defending myself, it was about reclaiming what had been taken. "LaToya may try to discredit me," I said, my voice unwavering. "But you can't take away my life. You can't take away my history, the sacrifices I've made for this family. You want the house? Take it. But you'll never take my pride." The room was quiet, all eyes on me. I could feel the weight of my words settle in the air. LaToya's desperation was growing, and she finally made her last play. Her lawyer stepped forward with a final tactic, claiming that I was being manipulated, that I wasn't in my right mind, that Charlie was pulling the strings. I stood tall. "The only person playing games here is LaToya. I've seen the truth, and I won't back down. Not now, not ever. The courtroom was buzzing with energy. I had the upper hand now. And then, as the trial neared its end, the judge asked for a moment to deliberate. The tension in the air was palpable. I could feel my heart racing, but in that moment I knew I had done everything I could. No matter the verdict, I had already won something far more valuable than a house. I had regained my soul. The last thing I saw before the judge's verdict came was the settlement papers on the desk waiting. The question hung in the air. Will I take the deal or fight until the end? The air in the courtroom was thick. I could feel my heart pounding, my breath shallow. This was it. The culmination of years of sacrifice, pain, and betrayal. I was standing on the edge, prepared to do whatever it took to reclaim my life, my dignity. It wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about the truth, about proving that I was more than the lies they had built around me. I sat there, watching the other side, trying to steady my breath. My thoughts went back to the years of service, the battles fought, the family I had built, only for it to crumble before my eyes. My relationship with my children, especially Harry, had been scarred by their choices. Every piece of this fight had taken a toll on me, but it was nothing compared to the emotional toll it had taken on my family. But I knew one thing: I couldn't back down now, not when I was so close. The final arguments were set to begin. LaToya's lawyer stood first, his voice cold and calculated. He laid out his case, painting me as a broken man who couldn't handle his own affairs, using every trick in the book. His words were like daggers aimed at my dignity, but I wasn't fazed. I had lived through worse. I wasn't about to let a room full of people rewrite my story. My lawyer, Charlie, stood tall beside me, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the storm raging inside me. When it was our turn, I could feel the weight of the moment. This was my time. I rose to my feet and spoke, my voice steady but full of conviction. My whole life, I've fought for what's right. I fought for this country. I fought for my family. And now I'm fighting for the truth. What LaToya has done is not just a betrayal. It's an attempt to rewrite my history, to erase who I am, and I won't let that happen. I paused, letting the words sink in. You can take the house, but you'll never take my pride. You'll never take my dignity. I could see the flicker of hesitation in their eyes, and I knew I had planted the seed. The courtroom was silent, but the tension was unbearable. LaToya's final attempt to salvage her position came just as I thought I had won the battle. She stood and with feigned tears made an emotional plea. "What about the children?" she cried, her voice cracking. "Dad, you're not just hurting yourself. You're destroying our future. You're doing this for money, for pride. What kind of legacy is that?" Her words were designed to manipulate the room, to pull at the heartstrings, but I wasn't about to fall for it. I stepped forward, my voice unwavering. "Don't try to use the kids to justify your actions. This isn't about them. It's about what's right and what you've done to me. You can't manipulate the truth any longer." The judge watched intently, the weight of my words settling into the room. LaToya looked stunned, but she quickly tried to recover, her anger palpable. But it was too late. Just when I thought the case might be slipping away, my lawyer handed me a stack of papers. My heart skipped a beat as he leaned in and whispered, "This is the moment, Jordan." He had introduced a game-changing piece of evidence, an audio recording of a conversation between LaToya and her lawyer, revealing their illegal tactics and manipulations. The room fell into stunned silence as the recording played out. I watched as LaToya's face drained of color, her lawyer looking nervously around the room. The judge's eyes widened, and even the jury seemed taken aback. For a moment, it felt like the entire world stopped. The manipulation that had been at the heart of this case was laid bare for everyone to see. I didn't show it, but inside, I felt a quiet triumph. This was the moment I had been waiting for. LaToya, broken and desperate, tried to salvage what was left. Her voice shook as she accused me of being the one who had been manipulative, claiming I had orchestrated everything, pulling everyone's strings. Her words fell flat. I stood, my voice calm but firm. "You want to talk about manipulation? Look at what you've done. For years, you've twisted the truth, lied, and used people to get what you want. but no amount of money or power will strip me of my self-worth. The room was thick with emotion. Her desperation was palpable, but I stood tall, grounded in my truth. I wasn't the victim anymore. I was the one in control. The case was reaching its boiling point, and the aftermath was even more intense. My family was divided. Some supported me, while others, like Harry, remained loyal to LaToya. The divide was clear, and no matter what happened in that courtroom, things would never be the same again. I couldn't help but feel the sting of betrayal from my own son. His loyalty to LaToya felt like a betrayal in itself. And yet, despite it all, I couldn't blame him completely. This fight had gone on for too long, and in the end, we were all casualties of it. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just about a house. It was about my place in the family, and that was something I wasn't willing to give up. The judge, after what felt like an eternity, finally spoke. The tension in the room was unbearable. The court has heard all the evidence, and it is clear that Jordan is entitled to the property he claims, the judge said. However, the emotional toll of this case will be felt far beyond the legal decision. This family's wounds will take much longer to heal. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. I wasn't jumping for joy. I wasn't celebrating. What had I won, really? The house? Sure, but at what cost? The battle had been won, but the war for my family's soul had only just begun. As I walked out of the courtroom, I felt the weight of the decision settle in. Victory, but at what cost? My family was fractured, and I wasn't sure if we could ever come back from this. I didn't know what came next, but I knew I had done what I needed to do for myself. As I walked down the steps, I received a message from Harry. "Dad, I'm sorry. Please, let's talk." I stood there for a long moment, the weight of his words pressing down on me. Would I forgive him? Would this be the moment everything changed? The battle was over, but the war for my soul had just begun. The weight of everything that had happened pressed down on me as I sat there, alone in my home. The court ruling had been made, and the world around me seemed to pause. I thought victory would feel like something grand, something to celebrate. But all I felt was a dull ache in my chest. It was bittersweet, to say the least. I had won, but I had lost so much in the process. I looked around at the empty space in front of me. The house was still mine, but I wondered what the cost had been. My family, my relationship with my son. Could I ever fix that? Could I ever fix what was broken in me? It was hard to imagine life as it once was. Harry's face, his silence, the strain in his voice when he tried to call. It all felt like something I couldn't easily mend. The weight of the fight was finally hitting me. It wasn't just about the house. It was about everything I had lost along the way, including my peace. And no matter how much I wanted to hold on to what was left, I could see how much had been stripped away in the process. My children, especially Harry, would never look at me the same way again. Maybe that was the hardest part. I called Harry. I had to try. There was too much at stake. The last time we spoke, it felt like he was already too far away, loyal to LaToya, distant from me, but I couldn't stop myself. I needed to try. "Harry," I said when he picked up, trying to keep my voice steady. "We need to talk." His voice was quiet on the other end. "I don't know what else to say, Dad. You've made your choice, and I've made mine." "Harry," I pressed, "this is about more than just this case. It's about us. Your mother, me, everything." There was a long pause before he spoke again. I just didn't know what to do, Dad. I was stuck. LaToya, she had me wrapped up in this. I couldn't do anything. I'm sorry." My heart ached. The words I needed to hear, the truth I longed for, were finally spilling out. But they felt too little, too late. "I didn't know you felt like that," I said, barely above a whisper. I thought you had turned your back on me." "I never wanted to," Harry's voice cracked. "But I was too scared to stand up. I didn't think I had a choice." That moment of honesty, of raw truth, hit me harder than anything else had. Maybe this wasn't all lost. Maybe there was still a chance for us after all. I wanted to hold on to that hope. I had to. I spent the next few days in silence, trying to process everything. But there was one more conversation I had to have. It was with LaToya. I had avoided it for as long as I could, but I needed closure, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate me any longer. When I went to see her, I didn't come in with anger. I came with something much stronger, truth. I don't know what you thought you were doing, I began, sitting across from her. But you've made a mess of everything. Your lies, your manipulations, they don't change who I am. She tried to deflect, her voice shaky but defensive. I did what I thought was best, Jordan. You were falling apart. I was trying to help. Help? I asked, leaning in. By taking what wasn't yours, by tearing apart this family. You didn't help anyone, Latoya. You hurt me. You hurt us all. She faltered for a moment, then sighed. I'm sorry, okay? I didn't know what else to do. It wasn't an apology that healed anything, but at least it was something. I nodded, standing up. I don't need your apology. What I need is for you to understand what you've done and live with it. As I turned to leave, there was a strange sense of relief. I had finally confronted the ghost that had haunted me for so long, but even as I walked away, I knew the scars would remain. It wasn't long before an unexpected opportunity came my way. A business venture. Something to get me back on my feet, something that could secure my future. It was tempting, but I didn't feel ready to jump in. I didn't know what I wanted yet. It wasn't the right time. Still, I couldn't ignore the possibility. It was a glimmer of hope in a world that had been darkened for far too long. Maybe this was the beginning of something better. Maybe. But I couldn't let go of the feeling that the real question wasn't what I had lost. It was what I was going to do next. I sat alone, staring at the quiet room, reflecting on everything I had been through. The pain, the hurt, the fight. It all felt like it had taken so much from me. But I realized, sitting there, that it hadn't. It had just made me see who I really was. Forgiveness wasn't about excusing what others had done. It was about freeing myself. And I could do that. I had to. Nothing would ever be the same. But I had the power to shape what came next. I would rebuild. I would move forward. And then, as I stood to leave for the new chapter of my life, my phone rang. It was Harry. Dad, his voice was shaky, filled with emotion. I'm sorry. Can we start over? I froze, the words I'd been waiting for, the words that would change everything. But could I do it? Could I let go of the past? This wasn't the end, but the beginning of a journey I never imagined.